Russia isn't spending nearly as much on their war, or as they would phrase it, their military operation in Ukraine as you would think. This is from Market Insiders, and it details the following. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has come at a steep geopolitical price, and tens of thousands of people have died. But a new analysis by the economists suggests the country is actually spending a small amount on the war effort. The direct fiscal cost of the war spending on soldiers and machines is estimated to be about 3% of Russia's GDP, or roughly 67 billion a year, according to the report. That figure comes from a comparison of Moscow's pre-invasion spending forecast for defense and security with what it actually spent. By historical standards, the current war pales in comparison. The Soviet Union during the World War II, for example, spent about 61% of GDP, and the U.S. at the same time put about 50% of its GDP toward the conflict. However, 3% is substantially higher than the 0.4% of GDP the Soviet Union spent on its war on Afghanistan. One reason for the relatively low spending on Ukraine is political, as the government has repeatedly called the war a special military operation, which could preclude using an exorbitant percentage of the GDP. There are also economic reasons. Printing additional cash to fund the war would push inflation higher and weigh on Russia's citizens. Saddling banks with war debt could do the same, and both options in turn could harm Vladimir Putin's political aims. Plus, the technology underpinning armed forces today is more advanced than ever, which means militaries require fewer people and machines for a war effort. To be sure, the war has resulted in widespread sanctions that have reshaped global oil flows and trade and cut into Russia's energy supremacy. Western nations have barred or boycotted Russian commodities, which have pushed Moscow to seek alternative destinations for its oil and other goods. So, my goal here is to show you how the perceived reality, or the side of the story that our mainstream media and our political leaders are giving us, isn't actuality, and it isn't true. So you may remember phrases like from people like Joe Biden, that Russia has been hit with the mother of all sanctions, and the goal of our political leaders and Western leaders in general is to, of course, tank the Russian economy. And of course, we all remember, as I've talked about in past videos, the fanatical fantasizations of forcing Vladimir Putin out of power, whether that be through a coup or somehow getting the people to rise up and go against him because of his wrongdoings in Ukraine. This is all from the ideology and mindset of Western political leaders, but that is in fact not. That hasn't been happening. The same way they would like us to believe that Ukraine are winning on the ground in that particular area of the world, and that they will emerge victorious from this conflict. It's very similar in terms of how they want us to believe Russia is struggling financially from this. And I want to go back to something that I read towards the end there in that article. It says that Western nations have barred or boycotted Russian commodities, which has pushed Moscow to seek alternative destinations for its oil and other goods. Well, there is no secret that Russia has been hit with an entire host of sanctions from the United States, of course, leading the Western nations with their sanctions, boycotting Russian oil and what have you. But here's the irony in all of this. If you look at countries like Brazil, India, China, South Africa, different countries in Latin America, the amount of oil and energy that they're purchasing from Russia is exceeding record-breaking numbers. I mean, if you look at a place like India and China specifically, that's Russia's top two sellers. You may notice that the people or countries that I'm naming are countries that are found within this BRICS organization, this new section of the world that has emerged, or not a new section, but a new power that has emerged to combat, to fight against, to overtake the Western hegemony, of course, led by the United States. And it has more to do, broadly speaking, with this shift in global dominance that has been taking place for years now at this point, and it's only getting exacerbated as time goes by, mostly due to the actions that the other side is taking. And this other side that I'm referencing is the West, obviously led by America. But what's interesting about this, as I return to the numbers as it pertains to the energy and the oil and Russia having people to sell this stuff to, is that they are huge exporters of oil and energy. Okay. With the war in Ukraine, I've talked about this in videos of the past. With inflation and everything else, the price of oil and energy has gone up. Well, that just means that they get to make more money. They get to make more money to put towards their war effort that apparently they don't even need because they're not spending much on this anyway. Do you see what's going on here? This is the reality of what's going on as it pertains to a very important and serious situation. And you can liken this to what's going on as it pertains to Taiwan and China, though we won't get in it. But you get one side of the story, or a very particular rendition of a story from our mainstream media and political pundits, but the reality speaks a much, much different tone. And I mean, I have to say, I wasn't really surprised to see this, but it's always incredible, to see information that is so entirely different from the kind of information that we're fed on such a daily basis. But at this point, if you haven't come to expect it, I don't really know what to tell you.